This podcast is rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Some material may not be suitable for children.
Mission 250.
To structure this, this is the Return of the Jedi. We're watching all 3 Star Wars movies in a row. This second half of the episode, we're focusing on trivia and things. Me and John read a book by John. Who's it by?
So J.W. Rinzer.
And he has a book on every one of the movies in the trilogy, and I would say they're totally worth it. Both the Kindle version, which you get the audio files with, or the hardcover version, which you get a shit ton of pictures with. There's that, and then there's 2 commentary tracks, and there's a bunch of history on these movies like we've never seen before. I think maybe the closest comparison is like Blade Runner, maybe? Could you think of another
Blade
one that
Runner
has
seems
more?
a lot, but Blade Runner doesn't have the universe that Star Wars does. There's no comparison there.
But in terms
Star
of
Wars
behind the
Spawn,
scenes, like stories
right.
and stuff, like stuff to look into, I don't think there's anything to compare to this.
No. Blade Runner is like a very, very, very distant. Lord of the Rings, I'm sure will when we get up, and Godfather, I'm sure has. Oh my God, Godfather and some of those larger series have a lot.
Lord of the Rings has 5 commentary tracks per movie.
My God,
wow.
So we're gonna have to. Oh my God,
and those are 3-hour-long movies each.
I know. Are we doing the director's cut of all of those?
I'm not gonna like those.
I think we should do the theatrical cut. I think.
I think
we
so.
can talk about it.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea. Okay.
I think they're better. They're tighter.
Less lingering on people's faces.
Less lingering, yeah.
I'm already not looking forward to this. Thanks, guys.
Hey, TC, you love Star Wars? You didn't think you would. Come on.
How's that spicy tuna, TC? How's that spicy tuna, TC? How does it taste now? Huh?
Fair point. I can't argue with that. The logic is sound. The logic is so sound. That is. You're right. You're absolutely right. All right. I will wait until the actual movie to hate.
That's good.
Yep. You're right, Denny. You got me on that one.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Dead to rights.
I'm glad that you're where you are now, because we're about to go into some fucking trivia. John read the first half of this giant book, and I read the second half.
That's insane.
John, do you guys did start?
Okay, first of all, hold on. You're telling me you guys actually read books for this project?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so did John. Yeah, it was good.
For all the listeners out there that are like me that don't read, you're welcome.
Because you can't. It's not because you don't want to. It's because you literally can't.
I don't know what the fuck I said. A, B, C, D.
So
thank you guys for reading. I mean, the amount of knowledge that must be in those books is insane.
It is crazy.
It's
there's literally day-to-day stories. Day-to-day on set.
They have like daily stories in the book. Holy shit. Awesome.
There's a lot. And again, we're not going to cover all of it because it's
how many of you guys have some really highlights?
Yeah,
I had my notepad next to me, and I took some notes while I was reading it. I'm going to
pick the mic for all the listeners. Yeah, I'm going to shut the fuck up. There you go.
you can just cheer us on, though, TC. That helps.
We want to hear the exclamations, TC.
Yeah.
So, John, you read the first half of the book, so let's start with you.
Did. Well, and what I also wanted to start with, because I actually went back to the Empire book, because one thing is that Kurtz leaves. So what? Ralph Kurtz? What is Kurtz's first name? Darn it! What was Kurtz's? Gary Kurtz. So Gary Kurtz was with George right from the beginning in all of this. He was kind of the producer, sort of like guy that was kind of running the show as well, along with Lucas. And at the end of Empire, Kurtz is leaving.
Kurtz is being fired.
Right. Well,
because they went so over budget, right? That was the reason. Well,
there was that. Like there's some mixed stories here. It depends who you ask, of course, and there's different conflicting reports here.
By all accounts, Kurtz was a great producer. Yeah. Right. But I think from what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he overstepped his bounds with Empire and just made it super over budget. And that's the reason he fired him for this one.
But I don't know if that was explicitly his decision. So Kurtz was, just quoting from the Empire book, Kurtz was not asked to produce the last film of the trilogy. And so here's what Kurtz says. He says, quote, "When we finally wrapped up Empire and shipped it off, George and I had a long talk about it, and it was clear he was unhappy with what had happened," says Kurtz. "The cost and then the other things, and I was weighing the option of joining Jim Henson to do the Dark Crystal. which had been talked about over the years from way before Star Wars when I worked with him on The Muppet Show. So it was mutual. George didn't really want me to do the next film, and I didn't really think I wanted to do it. It was just better for us to part company there without making the relationship worse. So that's
tough. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Corporate fucking response.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. I feel like it was very ugly. That's what I got out of it.
So then
Denny, it's never ugly. That's the problem. The problem is it comes down to a budget.
The important thing here is that this Kurtz was somebody that was really enmeshed with these projects, both the first two film, and he's gone for the third. And that may start to explain.
No, he's
also
gone forever. That's
I
the
know.
difference.
Well, some of the differences too. So I mean that was kind of important that Kurtz is gone. His influence now is gone, and he may have been one of those people that sort of was a foil to George, or somebody who checked some of George's ideas.
Or
George needs a foil.
Because he was there in the beginning.
I've been in a situation where like the person that got let go was the reason why we're all there. So there's also there's human stuff that's involved with that person not being there anymore. It's very like basic, right? Like that person allowed that guy to feel, or that woman to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And now that person's gone, they don't feel comfortable anymore. They don't do the best.
And I was poking around. There's an interview with Gary Kurtz later on, and I have no idea where this interview comes from. I really doubt that Gordon Gecko from 1975, who posted this on YouTube.
Gordon Gecko?
Geico? Was Geico there?
Gordon. Instead of Gordon Gecko, he's Gordon Gecko.
Who is this?
It's some guy who posted this interview on YouTube. But it's probably from some commentary that I don't know what. So I don't know how to properly represent it.
That's his YouTube name? It's not his real name? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So Gary...
Is he a negative guy?
I have no idea.
He might be happy. Put the mic away. Sorry, guys.
But the point being, anyway, Gary Kurtz is
TC, you're supposed to put the microphone way the fuck over there.
No, it's okay. You're still here for color commentary, TC. It's good. It's good. Anyway,
this is American Gladiators of talking, John. Are you ready? You're getting battered by tennis balls from cannons on both sides.
Wimp. I can't do this. Anyway,
hey, John. Just to be fair, you were the one doing this to me earlier. So fuck.
I know. I get it. So Gary Kurtz is being interviewed here, and I don't know where the true source of this is, but he says in this interview that he didn't like the Jedi script. He didn't want to do what had already been done. It's like they already did a Death Star. They already did a raid on the Death Star, and he said George just wanted more action. Gary liked that Han originally was going to be killed and that Leia had to take control of the rebels and Luke would be left on his own as a Jedi. And he felt like the new director, too, Marquand, was going to be just more willing to do what George wanted as opposed to Kirshner, who did Empire.
Which he totally was. He was a puppet, basically.
So, I know. Well, he wasn't as established of a director,
No.
So he was like just happy to be there, arguably. I don't know. And the influence that he had, Marquand, I have some quotes later, which seems like I think he was all excited about getting Leia in a bikini.
That was a really nice thing to say, John. I have to say, because
dude, everybody was excited about Leia in the bikini. Literally everybody on set.
But there are times in the studio world where I recognize that some people just end up in this position, right? And they're good people, right? Like I think that I just wanted to call that out because I feel like that was a really, I'm not always negative, guys. That's a very positive thing to say. Like the guy was happy to be there. It doesn't mean he was just a yes man. It just means that he was doing his best as he could in the situation he had. I think that deserves to be flagged.
No, I think so.
Anyways.
I don't think that Marquand had any bad intentions or had any bad decisions, really. Like he just did his job to a fault, maybe.
Yeah. But I think to me, it's just, here's the original guy. The guy that was with George from the beginning is gone.
Yeah.
And that's like that.
And most of the crew was there for all three movies. And the head of the production is gone for this one. Like that's a big fucking deal. Like everyone below him is still there, but they don't have the same leader. That's fucked up.
Right.
Guys, I can't tell you how important that is. I've been in this situation. I've seen someone on a Thursday and they're gone on a Friday, and they were the reason why I'm in the place to begin with.
Right.
And I'll tell you one thing: it is not a positive thing for the business to have those situations happen. So,
absolutely,
it is a very, very important thing to bear witness to, because it's absolutely as part of the creative process as anything else. So
yeah, so the Gary being gone, I just think it was like kind of like a fundamental resetting of what's going to happen for Return of the Jedi.
It was George taking a naysayer out of the top tiers so he could just fucking do what he wanted to do and not have these disrupted visions that were accessible and likable to a lot of people. He just did things that were high budget nerdy bullshit like the prequels.
Yeah. Well,
sorry,
it feels,
sorry.
No, I know, but it feels like I do feel like you can look at Jedi and you can draw a line from Jedi to the prequels.
You can,
right?
absolutely.
You know, and I think
it's a sharp line. It's like bop, 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 bop. It's like it's just, right into the ground. But like, it's there. It's totally there.
While you're making those points, I think everyone has to, as a listener, has to realize too that those situations aren't even available when that person wasn't there. So like the creative project doesn't exist without that naysayer in place.
Right.
And it only does after, and it does in such shit world garbage bullshit. Like I know it is, and I haven't even seen all of them. You can hear all the nerds talk about it. Fuck, this is why I didn't watch the movie. These things are part of the process. Like this is the type of shit that like your mother reminds you of when you like fall down and like you hurt your knee. Like don't fall down again, right? Like sometimes you shouldn't get rid of the person just because they're naysayers that year.
I want to know what George Lucas's parents are like in that. Like thinking about that, I feel like his parents just like let him do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. Is he like
an only child? Like,
yeah, he seems like an only child.
And him and Nick Drake were in the same boat. They were like, "Go play guitar upstairs, bud. Shut up. I don't want to hear." John got that joke. I know. I never who knew you'd bring Nick Drake and George Lucas? They should hang out together and have their own band. Nick Drake was like the biggest spoiled little brat you've ever fucking met. So like,
but he was real sad about it, you know?
Yeah, you know why?
Real dark. He was real dark.
What I realized about being sad is you have the ability to be sad.
Right.
You know, it's like you have the time.
Nick Drake like killed his parents because he was upset with them for giving him such a cushy life.
His parents wanted to do exactly what the studio wanted to do with Lucas. Is the only point I was trying to make. You don't fucking question that kind of guy. That's all it is.
So one thing I wanted to say too, just sort of an opening, like Brad Bird writes a really wonderful opening commentary. Like I know we touched on it a little bit, but the other thing that Brad described that I really liked is that he talks about going and seeing Star Wars in Oregon before anybody, you know, as it just came out. And he describes this great scene where something that happened that he'd never seen happen before. Like after the Star Cruiser comes by the screen, after you get the opening crawl and the Star Cruiser comes by, there's like an ovation in the theater. He said it was just amazing. He'd never seen anything like this. God. People just spontaneously applauded. They'd never seen anything like this. And that's hard for us to understand because Star Wars is so ingrained as. But he described it, and then he goes on to describe that when Vader comes on the screen, the audience again spontaneously hisses and boos. And he's like, these people had no clue, right? This was all new to them. And yet they were so caught up in it so quickly.
Well, they were caught up in the feeling that they had. That's it. Yeah.
But I can't even imagine. It's hard to. We can't go. I can't go back there because Star Wars is so much part of our culture that you can't go back there now and experience that. Right?
No, you can go to sleep mid-movie.
Yeah.
You can go to sleep mid-movie.
I don't know.
Right?
I saw Black Panther in the theaters, and the first time it's ever happened is like one of the first shots of that movie. It says Oakland, California, and I saw it in Oakland. And people fucking cheered for like 2 minutes when that happened.
For what?
For Black Panther.
No, but what I'm saying, like, I'm on your side. I'm like, for what were they cheering for?
It said, so the scene, it told them it was like Oakland, California was where this next scene was about to happen. And it said Oakland, California.
Who cares?
That's where we are. That's where we are.
Like, these are But my point is like it's like these are the differences. Like when Star Wars was fucking cheering, they were cheering for something they've never thought about before, not because they knew a geography. Right?
That's true. So I'm making a comparison.
We're at a point. Well, I'm not diminishing your point. Your point is that like people cheer for dumb shit.
Yeah.
Like
the point of cheering for the new shit that's actually like universal, as opposed to like you're cheering because they said the name of your town.
Like, hey, guess what? I live there too.
Yeah.
What's the Massachusetts like, Out Park?
Or like where Frozen 2, where my daughter cheers and goes.
I have a great.
The snowman says Samantha. This is the best movie ever made.
No kidding. She almost like flipped over the back of her seat. She was so happy.
Okay, so just to be negative, like I don't ever go to movie theaters, right? And I was at a Marvel thing and people cheered, and I remember thinking to myself, like, how fun this is. It's fun.
It's great. No, it's fun. It's fun to go see. Yeah,
like
it is
being
awesome.
at a concert.
Yeah,
and like we're all here together.
Yeah, it's great. Horror movies are awesome for that.
Oh my god, horror movies are my favorite.
I love going to horror movies.
When people screech all the way back too. They're always sitting all the way back. They're not in the front. They're all the way in the back.
Denny and I saw before I left Boston. We went and saw what was it like the
Ouija 2?
Yeah,
Ouija
like the
2 was
prequel
good.
Ouija. But seeing it in a theater opening night was just awesome.
Right. And so like, I think what we're touching on though, is the important part of like Star Wars is that they were clapping because they'd never seen it before. Right. When I was crying in, you know, any
Room, the movie Room. When you were crying, when you were watching Room, go on.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. When I was crying, watching her not escape the room, I was figuring out that, like, there's not every time that you should cry. Right. Like, you know, the Star Wars, I can see why they were clapping positively and then negatively and having no clue that they were doing both. Like, that's not going to happen in Room.
I just wish
George talks about that.
Well, I just wish I could have been like 16 or something and seen this and have enough, like, be an enough adult to really remember, like, and not have any knowledge of this film and go and see it in a theater.
TC, you have a fucking unique experience here, man. As an adult watching these movies for the first time.
Well, even then,
I'm not taking it as a unique experience. Actually, I'm taking it as an experience of someone who's been able to think about these things in long term thinking. Like, right, I'm actually in a good place because there's no ambiguity.
That makes it even more unique to you.
It's unique to me, but it's not unique in the sense of like most people in the world, right? I know that's what your point is. Your point is like you're lucky to have that, but I don't even see it as luck. Like,
for me, I just think it's. I would.
I would argue still, like, TC, it's not like you get to see this as a blank slate either, because it's still so much a part of our culture. Like, you do like 50% of Star Wars before you even watch.
Exactly what I was trying to say, and that was well worded as opposed to what I was going to say.
If you were an adult in the theater that had seen it without knowing anything about it, that's unique. But then you already have this entire backlog of your entire life of all the stuff that snuck throughout other pop culture shit. And you still haven't seen it as an adult.
I work in the movie and TV industry.
It's pretty fucking unique.
I mean, it's something else. Like I like you said, I'm negative all the time, right? I'm starting to see it more often than not. But I don't see it as negativity, but I see it as like too much context. And when you have too much context of something, it diminishes how much value it puts to it, because the people that are holding value to it don't know the context. They might not hold it so high if they had but at the same time, that didn't happen for me here, right? Like, like those thoughts weren't a part of my experience watching Star Wars, which is why I'm gonna buy a T-shirt or 7.
You should,
or 14.
It's awesome.
Maybe 14. So you don't have to do laundry. Like,
so this is my first quote from the Return of the Jedi book, and we're 20 minutes on, right?
Oh geez.
I'm sorry.
All right, TC, microphone over there. TC, microphone over there. Microphone over there. TC.
I'm not telling you that. No, I think this is still good.
Does everybody know that I like to pontificate?
Gotta go tell my wife that we're gonna be here all night, which is great. I'm enjoying this, so don't worry.
If you guys could hurry up, please. I got things to do.
Well, I just want to say Brad Bird's like. So Brad Bird, like, does, as I said earlier, he criticizes Return of the Jedi, and I think I should, like, make sure he gets credit. I like pitched about the Death Star being even more powerful, and he says the same thing. He's like, he like sort of then criticizes. He's like, what? It's even more powerful than the first dreaded Death Star. More powerful? The first one could blow up a planet. How much more powerful could it get? And then he says, there's other qualms. The disconnect between Jedi's Luke Skywalker and Emperor's Luke, which had cut short his training against the advice of his Jedi mentors to save his friends, then A, failed to save his friends, B, got his ass kicked, losing a hand in the process, and C, found out the most dastardly villain in the galaxy was also his dad. Luke is a humble Jedi at the conclusion of Empire, so I had trouble connecting that guy with the cocky dude who shows up at Jabba's palace at the beginning of Jedi. I also wish the film had followed up on Vader's plan for Luke to join him in his overthrow of the Empire, and that Han Solo had more to do. And as far as the Ewoks go, ...
Dude,
anyway,
Darth Vader did follow up on his plan, and there was time passing. I agree with the Ewok stuff, but anyway,
I thought he wrote up a really nice summary of his love for the film, and that he's kind of friends for that he became friends with George Lucas. Brad did as well.
Because there are people making successful movies in Hollywood, and they can spend all their cash in the same place together.
All right, so I'm going to interrupt one last time. The thing I've learned about movies, and I hate them, is that there is as much of an art to figuring out what the lowest and the highest person can withstand, meaning the bandwidth of their mental capacity, right? The smart person's like, oh, I don't understand how that works. That doesn't make sense. And the stupid person's like, so they got to do the Ewok thing? And so, like, finding a creative medium that helps both of those people positively is part of the art. And that is very much, you're never going to, be able to satisfy everyone. But if you can satisfy most of them, you're fucking brilliant. That's why you're being paid to do
that's
what
why this movie like hits really high in terms of how many parties it brings in and how frequently it hits. But they brought in so many goddamn parties in trying to make this movie what it is, right? Like you just can't win.
And to think
every
that
scene
they're
of the
doing
movie.
that when they're writing it means that they're keeping all of those things, those process parts in their mind when they're doing it. And that's something I'll probably never be able to achieve, as you know, most people won't. And I think that's why it's such a great, and this is why I'm so on board with it. It's because even I can't be that negative, right? Like it's great. I mean, it's just to think that you can help the stupid and the smart all at the same time.
It's amazing. It's amazing what we can do as people and as groups, as people working together. It's amazing the things we can construct. It's just such I don't know. It's just such an amazing accomplishment. It's just a friggin' science fiction film.
Even when you hate people, you still have to work with them.
It inspires like 50 years later. Like it still inspires. Like what they did
we
here.
Have a podcast that our climax is based on this movie, this trilogy, right? Like we have a brilliant. He's fine. He's on his own. We have a beautiful thing that we're doing here just because we like to do it.
Oh, okay. Here. You guys want to see something? My poor wife is struggling with our children.
Oh no,
with their one child.
I don't want to see that.
Wait. No, we would
is that passive aggressive?
Is this Alex?
Who does he look like? Who does Alex look like? Can you say hello? Say hello.
Looks like Luke Skywalker.
Say hi.
Hello.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
You got it right off the bat.
I got it right off the bat. You know why? Because I'm dumb. I can't read, but I can pick up things. You know. He actually does. He does look like Luke Skywalker, though. I mean, like,
hey, Nikki.
Hey. He does look like Luke Skywalker. He does. He really does.
Or Nikki's like, I'm just like going down to the basement for like 5 hours.
with my cup of gin.
Listen to them, right? It's chaos.
Oh, geez.
I know. That's crazy. I'll never have that.
What are you getting, a bottle of wine? What are you doing there? Oh, butter. Okay.
Well, we call it
What
butter.
are you doing? Making eggs or drinking? What are you doing?
It's white wine, but it's
One
butter.
flavor either way. Hey, Nick, if you want to just order pizza or whatever's easiest for you. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
dude,
so
pizza sounds great.
Oh, I know. Pizza's awesome.
I need a dad. Around. Hey, you want to order pizza?
Sounds big.
Yeah, right.
So getting back on, we're gonna maybe dress him up for Luke Skywalker for Halloween because he's
dude, it's the hair.
It's the hair for sure.
It's like the friggin' COVID haircut, which means
it's also his
haircut in like
head,
3 months.
His head
it's like
shape
straight on the top, and then it like swoops down towards like the end.
Yeah.
It's uncut and stuff. Yeah,
he's got the same head shape as Luke does too.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing.
He's talking pretty. I've never seen him talk that quickly before.
That's because he was divvied up between two parents.
Well, he was like, "You're like, say hi," and he was like, "Hello."
He's getting chatty.
He doesn't know what to do. He's like, fuck.
He's a little sleep deprived too. He's like TC right now.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm nuts. It's every day.
Exactly. This goes back to just getting back to Kurtz just a little bit. As mentioned, like Kurtz hands in his resignation. Howard's Kazanjian. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
That was a good attempt, dude. Good attempt.
Say that again. Try again.
Kazanjian.
I think it's pretty good.
He was brought in. He did some aspects of Empire's production. He was brought in.
What's his first name?
Howard.
and his last name?
I say yes next time.
Kazanjian.
Howard. Okay.
Kazanjian.
Tennis balls flying from left and right, John.
You've got enough material now to search for it. Okay.
Hey. I love it now. That conveys the fictitious scene in what was it, Full Metal Jacket, where they were throwing tennis balls at the sergeant as he was saying his lines, which didn't happen.
I don't know what
was that a movie? Was that a part of the movie?
What in Full
Have you
Metal
ever seen
Jacket?
American Gladiator where they have tennis ball launchers and they shoot it at the contestants?
Oh no, they do that too? That's what's going on? All right.
I've seen it. I know
anyway,
exactly.
That's good shit. That's a good TV show.
Yeah,
if we're gonna digress, we might as well digress positively. That's great.
The only thing I'd say here on this one quote is just that Kazanjian saying that, quote, I'm going back and forth a couple times to London because I wanted to sit with the production designer Norman Reynolds and discuss the crew. Kazanjian would say, one day Gary Kurtz comes in and says, what are you doing here? And I had to tell him that he was not on the picture. Didn't George speak with you? When I flew back, I met with George and Gary said, never told him, but George said I did. So there's the sense that maybe Gary just got fired without even knowing that he got fired, possibly.
That's how it works out here. Yep.
Right.
No, that's how it works here.
Right.
You go away, you leave the office, and then they let you know.
Same thing happened with, there's so many stories like that. The guy who played the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back didn't get a call at all. He's like, I was the Emperor in the first one, the second one. And I heard the third one was coming out and there's the Emperor as a main character. He just sat there being like, what? I was the emperor. I was the emperor in the second one. Why didn't they
Our
call
head of
me? How are
production
they doing this?
Went to the airport to go fly for business, and
They
on
didn't
the way
even
to the
consider
airport
it.
was
They
told
just,
he's
like-
fired. So there you
Oh.
go. That's Hollywood. They can't just look at someone in the eye and say, "You're not doing what we need you to do. Fuck off." They got to let you go in an email.
One of the things with this movie is that there is some secrecy in the script. Like there are things, though. I think the worst story I read was David Prowse, who plays the guy in the Darth Vader outfit.
Darth Vader suit, who was
Yeah.
grouchy about it the whole.
He
He's
was
had a rough
grouchy.
time
He
of it
was grouchy, but like
because he never felt like he got credit.
Yeah, which he didn't, and he had no idea what the script was for this movie either. And there was a secret scene that was filmed when some other actor, I forget what his name was, that was not the guy in the Darth Vader outfit when they took the helmet off. It was a different guy, and he was not aware that there was a scene where they de-helmeted Darth Vader
And it wasn't going to
during
be
the
him.
course.
Oh my God, I bet
and
he was
it wasn't
pissed.
him.
Damn.
Oh.
He was pissed. He
That
was
usually
By the
was.
way,
pissed.
did you guys find it a
Yeah.
little racist that we got the white guy's voice in the fucking D helmet?
Oh, you mean?
It was the actor's voice.
Yeah,
It was his
but
voice.
I can see
Why
like,
was
like,
it his voice? Why wouldn't they They
Yeah.
should have dubbed it with
I
the
just-
original voice.
No, because I feel like
I didn't
I
get
like
to
it
that.
because personally for me, it's the helmet makes his voice different. Like it was
Right,
all
right.
a projection.
All the more reason why it would have been acceptable for dubbing.
But then Luke would have had to be black,
Yup.
which is fine. Or
We're
at least-
already used
like-
to dub.
No, I think the
already
way they
used to
did it
dub.
was pretty good. Personally,
I think it was.
But
not
I can't
great.
believe that
I think
I
it was
didn't
not
know
great.
that, Denny, that it wasn't him, because that must have made him so pissed
Dude,
off.
he was so
Because
mad, so mad.
I can't. Right, but he was known even in Empire for leaking stories to everybody. He would leak like what the script was. Like George had kept a tally of who had leaked
Why
what.
would he do that?
had like the highest score.
Why would you do that?
Because he would see the script and he would just tell.
He was the
people-
most disenfranchised
fucking-
from it. Like he was such an
Jesus
important character.
Christ, get rid of that fucking guy.
No,
You kidding
they
me?
kind of were. So he was in less than half this movie. Every time you see Darth Vader, is less than half the time was David Prowse, because there was a fencer they had that was like all the sword fighting scenes, which are most of the Darth Vader scenes, were this gold medalist fencer. And they put him in giant platform boots and they shot him at angles where he looked big, but he was like a short guy who was good at sword fighting. And that was mostly who is Darth Vader in this movie. And then you have this completely different actor when they take the fucking mask off. Completely fucking
Say
different
dubbed
guy.
his voice. I wish they dubbed his voice.
Wow. So one of the other interesting things is ILM was now like shopping itself out as a special effects company. So Industrial Light and Magic, they were like, part of what they were doing was earning money, like making special effects for other films. So they were like doing Dragon Slayer, they were doing Raiders of the Lost Ark, they did E.T., this was all going on while Return of the Jedi was being filmed and produced. And sometimes that created some conflicts because they had like only a certain amount of staff that could work on different things. So they did Star Trek 2. They were doing some interesting things in terms of like negotiating what they like. They would like negotiate contracts demanding they get percentage of the film, and figuring out how one of the things that was notorious is that like special effects budgets would just balloon and delay films. Like the first Star Trek was notorious for this. So they were like working out ways to sort of negotiate and bid on these different projects and trying to work that out. So that was like another sort of George Lucas thing where he's like building up this ILM team that's actually doing the effects for some of like the leading special effects films at the time. Oh, wow.
One of the craziest parts of reading about this movie is that George Lucas in the background is helming ILM to do some of the biggest movies of this decade, beyond Star Wars and beyond Indiana Jones. Like it's fucking
For me,
insane.
you got to question some of their decisions though, because they're not decisions made by audio people; they're made by corporate people.
And they were always like,
Just saying.
They were like close. They were like hoping that, they were always like pouring more money into the stuff that was going on before they had it. I mean, even with Empire out, they were like hoping that Empire would earn enough cash to keep ILM and its parent company going through the years while they did the next sequel. So they weren't just like always flush with cash and just hanging out and relaxing, because George kept building.
They just
more.
went on a run of amazing movies that made cash.
And now
It's something else. It is something that it will never happen again. You know what I mean?
It
It's something
probably
that will
won't.
never happen.
No.
Yeah, it won't happen.
Especially because they were
the-
starting an industry from the ground up. Sorry, John. But
Right.
like,
Right,
it
it's
was
a startup
new
culture.
industry.
Startup culture where you can make it up as you go.
Yeah,
We're not in
but
that
they
world.
just kept doing that. They just didn't get. George never let them just be comfortable. He always was broadening what they did and trying to grow this kind of empire itself. To no pun intended.
Like, you know that term, like
Boo.
pioneers get slaughtered, right? Pioneers get slaughtered. That's what they say all the time. Like the person that makes something gets slaughtered.
But he did
Not this time. Not this time.
No.
Right. And that's
It's pretty
why
crazy.
he's fucking. That's why you know what, Denny? That's why he gets to fucking re-edit his movies.
Right.
That's
well,
the
and
only
the thing.
reason why he gets to do it.
But
he survived.
But
Right,
that
right,
is the
so-
reason. So it doesn't matter.
Right. So the influence that
You
that
can't
he has
correlate the
had
rest, right?
through his company on sound, on moving to digital, on just the technology in the movie industry is just so profound. And he had all of this as this ambition and this drive. And it's just that's like sort of like in the background all the time. He's building these 3 Star Wars movies, which is just amazing. So the original title of the episode was Kasdan said that George came to me. He said the title's going to be Return of the Jedi, and Kasdan said, well, I think that's a weak title. So then George came back 1 or 2 days later and said, all right, we're calling it Revenge of the Jedi. So for quite a long time, the title of the film was going to be Revenge of the Jedi.
Behind
And-
closed doors, because in public it was called Blue Harvest for the entire
Well,
shoot.
in public, they actually they told the public that it was going to be Revenge of the Jedi, but when they would go to like scout for locations or buy locations, they had this title of Blue Harvest, like horror at a new level or something like that. Like
Yeah.
they made up this fake film.
They didn't want
so
crowds.
They didn't want crowds. They also didn't want people to overcharge them and go like, "Oh yeah, fuck you, you're Star Wars. You can afford it. Us, whatever we
This
decide
is
to
why
tell
they
you."
didn't allow them to make those decisions.
Right.
You're not
So,
in charge of
so
that.
they would just call it Blue Harvest as if it was going to be this horror movie. It was cute. You know, they made up
The
this fake
marketing
film.
guy was like, guy, can we have a meeting? I got to call a meeting. This is ridiculous. Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting. So they then went back to Return of the Jedi, I think, and I didn't get the
Better,
exact,
way better than Revenge of the Jedi, I think.
Well,
I think that's a fantastic title in comparison to Revenge of
Lucas
the
at one
Jedi.
point
Yeah.
says that revenge is just that he got letters and stuff about how revenge is not something a Jedi would do. That's like a dark side thing to do. Revenge is a dark side thing, right?
Oh my God, this
Yeah.
is why I never watched this movie. So,
Dude, it's true. I agree with you, John. It puts a negative connotation on the whole idea of the movie, which is a positive thing, I think. It would have been bad.
well, they're not samurais. They're fucking Jedi.
They are
right? Like they're
samurais.
like no, but like the samurais, they go back for fucking revenge. Like that's what they do.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
and
And
this episode wouldn't be one of our episodes if we don't have like some snarkiness from Alec Guinness, who I love, and I really
Oh, what do you say?
well, at some point I want to read his biography, but so
I don't
He
read.
shot one day on this movie.
I
One
know.
day.
So Alex and Cousin John was talking about Alec. He says Alec talked about this next Star Wars picture, and George told him that Obi-Wan would be a more substantial part because that was Alec's one big concern. He also didn't want to be shot against a black velvet background, not relating to any of his character surroundings. So George said that wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it that time. And George Lucas says then Alex Guinness wasn't keen on playing Ghost, but he wanted to finish the project. He understood my goals and he understood the larger picture instead of just what's in it for me. And in Guinness's authorized biography, the actor is more candid, to quote the book. And Alex says, it's a rotten, dull little bit, but it would have been mean of me to refuse. And what we've learned about Alec in the different films that we've seen, he seems like to have this sort of like also seeing Alex's films and reading about him and how he's kind of insecure and sort of gripey at the same time. I kind of like the guy because he's just like struggling and trying to do a good job, but also
You like
doubting
him because he's an amazing actor.
There's that. It's hard to imagine anyone else being Obi-Wan. It's hard to imagine like anybody else doing it so well. And that's
true for most of the leads in this movie, which is awesome.
That's
Mark
good
Hamill
point.
as Luke,
Leia, Carrie
Leia,
Fisher.
Harrison Ford. Like it's those 4 people in those roles. You couldn't recast them.
Chewie.
Chewie. Chewie.
That's all he does the whole thing. He's a great actor.
So, Peter Bayou is a wonderful guy. Apparently, he's a really, really nice guy. So back to like Empire itself, it didn't surpass Star Wars at the box office. The film wasn't getting a lot of repeat viewings, and that's really why it wasn't like it was doing well.
Made a shit ton of money.
Yeah, but it wasn't going to do as well as Star Wars, and part of that was people didn't want to go see it again. It wasn't like this happy thrill
Fell
ride.
asleep right before the bridge scene.
Yeah, right. So and Mark Hamill says like this. He's sort of like he said, he had this nice quote in the book too. He says, "Well, let's go see Star Wars again. Like it's a second ride on the Matterhorn at Disneyland." And Hamill says, Empire was a much bigger challenge to pull off and was not a repetition of Star Wars in any way. Round 2 went to Darth Vader, as it were. So the movie didn't have that same kind of triumphant, giddy, slap happy feeling as Star Wars. It was a bitter pill to swallow, and I'm still amazed that it was so successful. So that's true. It was a risk there. They went dark. And they didn't end. They end on a cliffhanger, and it's not happy. And I remember, again, as we talked about.
Darth Vader saves him, dude. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. I was literally screaming in my room, he saves him? He saves him? You're telling me that Force won? And I'm like, I went into my roommate's room and I'm like, dude, Darth Vader fucking saves him. I fucked up, right? And he's like, yeah, no shit. He's like, you didn't know that? I'm like, I've never seen it. He's like, you've never seen it? And it sparked that whole conversation again. So like there was darkness, but there was so much light involved with the overall arching story.
Man. So speaking of the third one, there are so many changes that I have a long list of things, John. I don't want to like.
Oh yeah. No, we'll get to those too. I'll cover some of that probably, and then you can fill in the rest too if I miss it.
So full disclosure, I watched.
Before I get off that,
I watched the non-desensitized version on the second half, and I didn't give a shit.
Oh
okay,
no. So you watched the wrong ending.
We'll go in when you get to that, right?
The point is, wouldn't care.
TC, you fucked up.
Less.
You fucked up, TC.
No.
Wait a minute. All right, let's stop there for a minute.
That's the point. That is, I did
the thread of what I was talking. Let's get to that. That's funny. Save that for later.
I'm not offended. I think it's great. I think this is exactly what I assumed would happen because it's what should happen, right? Like,
the worst part of the entire series and the specialized versions is the end of the Return of the Jedi.
But I didn't have a worse experience. Like, the points that matter for the
guys.
John's talking about.
We put a pin in it right now. Let's put a pin in that one. We'll get back to that one. Naturally,
he's telling me to shut up. I'm agreeing with him.
Yeah, just for a minute, because I want to finish my point about the performance of Empire. Because Harrison Ford had a pretty good quote about that, which I just thought was funny again in his usual style. And I like again. I know he seems a bit grumpy. I can't use that word. He seems grouchy. He has such great quotes. And in this one, when he's talking about Empire, he says, well, I guess it depends on what you go to a movie for. I figured there was at least $11 worth of entertainment in Empire. So if you paid $4 and didn't get an ending, you still got $7. You're still $7 ahead of the game.
And just so you know, Denny, I had looked up the ending already before I watched it. I had done the research, so I knew I wouldn't fail you.
No. You don't know what the ending is. If you watch the non-despecialized version.
No. I read it on Wiki. And I'm like, I'm not going to give a shit about that. And so I decided to just watch the one on Disney Plus. So but that's my point. That's why I love this movie so much is I can do that and enjoy it as much as you just enjoyed it without ending.
That part makes me angry. I'm a huge fan of this movie, and that part literally makes me angry that they changed the ending of the last portion of this movie.
Well, and I understand
upset.
Why,
it makes me upset.
No, I creatively I understand why that makes you upset, and to me, I don't give a shit. That's the point about like the creative part.
And I think that's why they get away with it because a lot of people just
don't care. Yeah, they still had a great time.
It is. That's all that matters. It's again another point where it's just really too bad that something like the despecialized editions aren't freely available as the enhanced editions.
Both versions should be available if he wants to have a fucking new version. Period.
Yeah. So now something else that started to happen. Another person who's like leaving is Ralph McQuarrie. He gets kind of burned out. He sort of ends up doing like over 3. So Ralph McQuarrie is one of the just brilliant like artists. He did a lot of the sets, a lot of the like sort of not storyboards, but like the sort of paintings that would describe the style in the sets and things like that were really influential.
Pre-production.
Right. And so, but Ralph, like one of the things that sort of happened early on is he abandoned, like they kept working on the Ewoks and he just got kind of like tired of it because they were just trying to make them too cute. He said, quote, I looked at what we were doing and my own feeling was
fuzzy.
I'd like to have them more animal-like, more sinewy and lifelike, he would say. They were starting to look like teddy bears and I wasn't for that. So I gave them 3 or 4 drawings that I thought were right. And I said, that's it. Now, if you don't like those, I'm out of this competition. Because there were other illustrators that would basically, again, as we know the way George worked is he would just say, go draw this stuff. They're little creatures. And then he would just mark on red.
5 versions.
Yeah, or hundreds of versions. And then he would like pick 5 and then he'd tell them to go iterate on those. But Ralph also he eventually just got burned out. There's other quotes with him just saying that he just felt like he'd done some Star Wars he was really happy with and then it was diminishing returns for him. He felt like he couldn't top it and it was just really hard for him to go back there. And he felt like he was sort of old and antiquated compared to the rest of all these young talented people that were there.
Which all of us understand. Right.
And it's just kind of, that one doesn't seem like it was so much like he was disagreeing with George or anything. He just was sort of burned out. And there was this he
put his whole heart and soul into doing something specific and that's all you're going to get from me. Right.
And he's so friggin' talented. And there's this really touching sort of moment described in the book where McQuarrie like stand there, like giving him a send off because he's just saying, look, I'm tired. I'm not going to do this. And he said, I was one of the first people you hired, George. And they're in this big meeting, and George says, no, you were the first person I hired.
Like, no. Like,
I mean,
I think you know what I really love about the story, John, is that what you're telling all of us, and I had never heard of this before. What you're telling all of us is that these people cared for each other. That's why I think I love him for being the owner of this project.
Right.
He always was. He kept people's world in his mind when he thought about it.
Yeah, there's only two people throughout the entire series that talk negatively on him, and at the same time, they still turn around. Carrie Fisher was one of them, but like she still turns around at the end and says like, "Well, but he created this thing."
Yeah, when you're in that family, you're in that family. Period.
Yeah.
I don't care how much work you have to do.
Again,
we still love you like family. And like it's clearly like he gave him a send off because he cares about him. He didn't say, "Hey, go to the airport on Friday and then we'll fucking write an email, bro."
Right.
That's definitely the case. You were there for.
That comes across time and again with George is that he was. It's not like he's with Stanley Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock or some of these other like sort of big creative minds.
In the process, these people are pawns.
Right. Yeah,
these are family members that work on the art with him, and he needs them just like you need him.
Right.
And that's amazing. You know what he is? He's a normal human being who happens to be a genius creative. He envisions.
Dude, he's not a normal human being. He's not.
No. I meant like normal in the sense of like he has empathy for the other person in the room with him doing the work. He can see them as important. Yeah. Because he obviously gives people send-offs. Like, he doesn't have to give this guy a send-off if he's burned out. Fucking take a fucking leave of absence.
I get from his interactions that he's being nice because he knows it always makes the interactions easier to him.
No, I don't think so.
All he wants to do, I've listened to him for 12 hours in commentary, and he is a smart person. He is a weirdo. He wants people to work and feel good. He knows that people will work better if they feel good about what they're doing, and he knows how to like give them a good feeling in what they're doing, and he never gets emotional about it. Like, even though he's totally stressed about everything he's doing, he never expresses stress to anybody else that's working on the movie.
Tactical empathy creates progression in collaboration.
Yeah.
Period. If you have the ability to say this person is feeling this way,
that doesn't make it. It doesn't make it artificial, Denny, either.
No, it doesn't make it artificial.
He may actually care about them too. I mean, part of it might be practical, but I think that you also pick up.
Should we get into this, John? Are you done with your trivia or no?
Well, no. Oh my God, no. I'm not. I'm like barely scratching the surface. So one of the things again that's amazing about these films is, and this one is the case too, even more so that. So they don't have a director yet. They don't know who's going to write it because George never really wants to do the writing, but he's always going to collaborate with somebody. And yet he's just telling his artists, he's hiring the artists already and telling them to crank out storyboards and crank out like concepts. He's like, just give me some shots, big shots, small shots, spaceships doing all kinds of things. He was just having them like, he's like, well, we got some things. Maybe we'll have some furry creatures or whatever like sketches of ideas they have. Like for quite a long time throughout the whole film, there was going to be this had abandoned, which is this the evil Empire City. But they kept like wanting maybe there's this whole city that's like the like capital of the
where
Empire.
the Emperor lives.
Yeah,
really?
And that was going to be, and to some extent they were thinking that would be like not even that they wouldn't even have Death Stars then. Somehow it was this city that was going to be attacked by the rebels, and that's where the Empire is destroyed. Maybe they get rid of the Death Stars, but that there were like lots and lots of work went in terms of what the city looks like. And eventually they just kind of ended up scrapping that for the Death Stars. And I've got some like quotes about how there's like a lot of like discussions about that. But then there's this illustration and work done in terms of what that looks like and what that city looks like. And it was going to be like, maybe it's a lava world, or maybe it's like this big, like intricate technology city.
You got a snow world. They were playing Mario number 3 and the fucking Super Nintendo. Right? They're like, oh, we got ice world. We got a lava world. We got a ghost house.
Right.
That's what we got.
And it was just amazing that so much work is going on. Additionally, like even finding the director and the writer.
He's laughing, by the way. If you're not, his microphone's away. I can see him. He's laughing. Imagine it. That's good.
So what makes this?
I'm coming in, folks. I was just thinking Sonic the Hedgehog all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like it's just like they're watching Sonic roll around on these fucking things, and they're like, "This is what we got to do next." Yeah. Anyway.
Guys, you see this? This is what we need.
This is why I don't unmute.
So the interesting thing, the other thing that makes this more difficult in terms of Lucas finding a director and a writer is that he was fined for various infractions due to credits on Empire from the Directors Guild. So he because of the way he wanted credits shown and stuff like that would run afoul of the Directors Guild. And that also meant he was going to have trouble hiring people who were from the Directors Guild or the Writers Guild.
That wasn't just from Empire. That was from the first one.
Right. No, this is continuous, right? Yeah. No, he always kept running afoul with them. And he actually ended up resigning from both of those guilds. But
which is why Steven Spielberg didn't direct this movie. Steven Spielberg almost directed this movie.
Right.
Which is
insane. Who else?
David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg was the person who dropped it, and David Lynch.
No, David Lynch. George offered the job to David Lynch first. Cronenberg wasn't off.
Yes, he was.
I thought he was just in consideration.
Jenny, would you shut the fuck up? Jesus.
No, it's okay.
He was. He was offered the fucking movie.
I'm audience member.
I didn't read. Sorry, at least in this book, it doesn't detail that he was offered. In the book, all I got was that Lynch was offered the job, and Lynch was freaking out.
Lynch said it was Lucas's thing, and he went to go do Dune, which was pretty much Empire Strikes Back, but weirder.
I'm sort of glad. I think it would have been really interesting to see what would have happened between George Lucas and David Lynch. Like,
it would have been bad. The movie would not have been made.
These are two probably very opinianated people. I think it might have been challenging.
Lynch would have been fired at some point for sure.
But because since Lucas,
I think David Lynch is a very actually amicable guy as far as I
have no idea.
He's very
pinpointed on his vision for movies.
He's pinpointed on his vision, but he doesn't hire anybody that would not they're only accepting that and moving on. I don't think it would even be against. It wouldn't even be him versus.
But he wouldn't have any power in terms of hiring at all.
No, but I'm just saying the creative that comes out of both of those people are so separate that it would never be a battle.
Oh, really? I had no idea. I just I see him as a visionary too. I just think it might be challenging if you've got two visionaries.
But it's like a mental visionary versus a universe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Different visionaries.
Maybe it could have been good.
He has these weird philosophical visionaries, David Lynch, and the other one has a universe that he built.
Yeah. I don't know if it's
very different.
But I could just see Dave saying something like, "Yeah, George, that's pretty cool, but what if they look like vaginas?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, no, that's why you're being fired. You're gonna go to the airport. We're gonna send an email out on Friday."
So anyway,
put him in a weird.
So since Lucas was resigned from both guilds, he was going to have trouble if he tried to hire a director, and that meant that he was going to go outside of America, basically. So there's other directors considered: Richard Donner, who did Superman, Desmond Davies, who did Clash of the Titans, Hugh Hudson, who did Chariots of Fire, Terry Gilliam. Imagine Terry Gilliam doing this one, right? Holy shit!
I did the Don Quixote documentary.
Yeah, talk about budget overruns, right? One of
my recommendations for the movie next week is a Terry Gilliam movie.
Right. Richard, Brazil, we still got to do at some point.
That's the one I want to recommend.
We got to do Brazil. Richard Attenborough, who did Gandhi, that could have been amazing, right? David Cronenberg, but also John Carpenter.
What?
Right? This was kind of the short list, right?
This was right after Halloween. So they're like, hey, let's get the Halloween guy to direct.
Well, after Escape from New York.
There was actually a short list, though. This seems crazy to me. That's not I know.
I mean, they could, certainly they'd be like, hey, who wants to do the next Star Wars? They could certainly approach these people, and it's a legitimate offer, right? George offered the job to David Lynch, and David Lynch just refused and said, look,
no way, dude. I know you can't do this.
He's stressed out. He's like, no way. And De Laurentiis was courting him on Dune. I think Oscar De Laurentiis was the producer of Dune, or Daniel De Laurentiis.
So is this the universe shit taking it into its own hands? This movie might not have ever been the same as David Lynch.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's amazing.
Did with Marquand, who really hadn't done a lot compared to these other directors. But him and George got along really well. And Marquand, one of his earliest quotes in the books, he really wanted this job. And something where I feel like, I wonder if he had a hand in the way Leia was treated, because he just says, well, I just love the way George told the story. I also talked about the way that Carrie Fisher was portrayed. She meant a lot to me in Star Wars, that she was this perfect little doll-like creature and how terrific it was. And I was like, no, when was she ever a perfect little doll-like creature in the first two films?
We don't even need to unpack that.
I don't get it. Why did I don't get it? Anyway, he also talks.
John, that's later. What Hollywood has been 30 years.
Marquand talks later about Carrie Fisher saying, I was really upset to hear you have this beautiful woman, and I hated the costumes in Empire Strikes Back because you have this beautiful woman and she's just dressed drably. So
she's not getting me my goddamn pancakes at 8 a.m. That's the same shit.
So that
Slap
made me
her in
kinda
a
think-
fucking slave bikini. Why
Right,
not?
right.
That'll justify how
Structure.
beautiful she
Beautiful.
is.
No,
because
you know
that-
what that does, Denny, is it punishes her. That's the
No,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
anyway.
that's
pretty
why
fucked-
people
that's
hate Hollywood.
pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Right? Like he thinks that those things are normal, and he's literally doing it like, no, this affected me, and they're like, yeah, but it shouldn't because like that's not a thing. And he's like, no, but it did. And they're like, no, but that's not how they're supposed. Like they're equals. They're not. And so like it's this is the pain that I have with Hollywood is not the fact that like you can have those discussions. It's the fact that like there's some people out there that don't even they marginalize every other person around them at all times. You know,
So
and that's
here's some quotes from David Lynch, which just sort of is more about insight into David Lynch, which I just thought was sort of like it really humanizes Lynch himself. So he flew to Northern California to see Lucas, and he says, "quote I came into this office and there was George." He continues. He talked with me a little bit, and then he said, "I want to show you something." And right about this time, I started to get a little bit of a headache, and so he took me upstairs and showed me these things called Ewoks. And now this headache is
a little
getting
bit of
stronger.
a headache.
Yeah.
That's
He
part of
showed
my
me
line.
many animals and different things. And then he took me for a ride in this Ferrari to lunch. And we're flying through this little town in Northern California. And we went to this restaurant that only served salad. And then I got a really kind of a migraine headache.
Yeah,
And
really
I
got a
could hardly wait. I could hardly wait to get home.
And all of a sudden, E.T. was in the fucking front seat. You know, I was like, "Fuck me!
Right.
What am I
So
doing?"
I thought it was just, just seeing David Lynch in this, like he's just having a really rough time. And then Marquand like kept talking to Lucas, and Lucas said that he said that George called George called Kasdan and said, "I want to go with David Lynch," and so Kasdan called David Lynch. And Kasdan's quoted here. He says, "So I called David Lynch and he was thrilled, but within 3 days he declined. He was a DGA member, so Directors Guild, but he declined for other reasons. And not long afterward, David announced that he was going to do Dune. So obviously he was being simultaneously romanced by De Laurentiis. Richard doesn't even know the story. Nobody
Romance
knows.
is another thing that annoys me.
Yeah.
It was just logic.
Right.
It's
And
business.
Lynch himself recalled it this way, according to the book. He says, even before I got home, says Lynch, I crawled into a phone booth and I called my agent and they said, there's no way I can do this. And then his agent said, David, calm down. You don't have to do this. And so George, bless his heart, I told him that he should direct it. It's his film. He'd invented everything about it, but he doesn't really love directing. And I called my lawyer and he said, you just lost us millions of dollars.
And then the lawyer said, but thanks for paying me on time. I mean, like, fuck off, right? At the same time, I mean, they all knew he wasn't right for this. He knew he wasn't right for this.
I know,
he probably spent 3 days talking to his mom.
Right, but it's such a stressful,
You know what I mean?
stressful thing,
Yeah, no, it is. This business is fucking ridiculous because what I've learned from working in it is that every single project is different from the last.
Right.
You don't standardize anything because none of the people are standard.
Right.
So like this, like I can imagine that my stress is like coming home at the end of the day. His stress is like making a movie or not. Like I can't even imagine how much that weighs on David Lynch when he's thinking to himself, I have a great friend who's a visionary and there's no fucking way I can do this film. You know what I mean? Like the stress is more or less him being unaccepting like of the fact that he could do it than it is about like actually the project itself. And I mean, that's, fuck man, that's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he didn't direct it though, because he would have been miserable.
Yeah, and it might not have gone anywhere. It might have been pretty challenging.
It would have been Twin Peaks with like no fucking good actors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, shit, man. All right. Muting.
So, let's see. So again, Ford quoting here about like wanting to kill off Han Solo. His quote is, he's got no mama, he's got no papa, he's got no future. He has no story or responsibilities at this point. So let's allow him to commit self-sacrifice. Again, just very much to the point.
No, we're just going to make him do like weird facial expressions.
Right. And
hey, Ford, can you smile on half of your face? Oh, you can. Great. Let's capture that. Capture that
Good
on
job.
film.
Yeah, still look handsome. Well done.
Hey, so it's only the left side, huh? Okay, cool. We're going to move the camera. Move the
Can
camera.
you do the
We're going
right
left.
side?
We're going
Oh,
left.
you can.
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
That's
rolling.
Yeah. So one interesting tidbit about Admiral Akbar is that Marquand, the director, got to decide what Admiral Akbar looked like. They had this whole like range of creatures, and George just said to him, "Who's going to play Admiral Akbar?" And I just decided she should be a creature, so you can pick out Admiral Akbar. George told the director, and Marquand
This
then
is the
said,
fish commander,
George,
TC.
Yeah, George said, "I think this should be your decision." And he's one of your new characters, and he said, "No, you choose." And then Marquand said, "So I picked the most delicious, wonderful creature out of the whole lot." Marquand's wording is creepy to me. This great, big, wonderful calamari man with a red face and eyes on the side. I think it's good to tell kids that good people aren't necessarily good-looking people and that bad people aren't necessarily ugly people. Well, that's
And
good.
hey, you know what? They're not women, right? I mean, like, Jesus Christ. These people
But if
are
you have a
something
beautiful fish, you put her in a metal bikini is what you do.
else. Hey, dude,
Right,
just
right.
put her in a fucking
But
situation where
it's
you
just
gotta
sort of
use her.
interesting that like George just handed it to him to be like, all right, you're going to do the calamari guy. That's great.
No, I mean, I would equate this to me being a lazy ass, right? I'm a lazy ass all the time. I do less work on purpose. Like, no,
Yeah.
you do. I don't give a shit about that character. He probably didn't give a shit about that character. He knew that whatever the choice was, it was still going to be good.
Did he
Right.
seem like an idiot to you,
Yeah.
John, or what? Marquand.
No, he seemed a little
What was the
creepy
general
in some ways.
creepy?
Yeah, or I don't know,
I would argue that nobody in the high levels of film are idiots.
No,
They're like-
I know. I don't think
they're
he seemed like
like-
an idiot or anything. I think
there's
he was
something
just, and I'm sure he was just very much. I mean, I do sort of just. I'm sort of annoyed because I think that he might have been the one to push to sexualize Leah the way it was done in the film.
No, that was George.
but-
That was George.
was that
too.
George?
There are
George
some,
had the-
there are some, but it's very few and far
It is very
between.
few.
Like,
George
Yeah.
George was the one who like gave her the concept drawings and was like, "Hey, this is what we're doing," and that's why she basically had an eating disorder for like 4 months before the shoot. She didn't eat anything. She said she weighed 80 pounds, which I don't believe. That's what she said.
Well, 80 is not
Yeah, that's
realistic.
insane.
Well,
But
she's
yeah.
not very tall, so it could
She's
happen.
not, but like she lost a lot of weight for the role because she knew she was going to be like half naked for half of the movie.
Right.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know even what you can't even begin to unpack all the stress
Yeah.
for both sides of that.
And
I don't
I
even know where
don't. She's mad at this movie. You can hear it from her tone of voice, and I don't
Yeah.
blame her. Can't blame her.
I don't either, because obviously it was a very stressful time for her, and there was a lot of things that were happening too. Like she had that relationship with fucking what's his name. She had this thing going. She had a important director telling her what she had to do with her weight. She had this and that. I mean, it's all the things you wouldn't even expect.
She
when you're
probably
doing a
knew that
film.
her career was over too, because she wasn't the kind of star that Ford was, and Mark Hamill had the same problem. Where like,
And
they,
so
they
she
knew they
wanted
didn't
to
have
make
the
sure
star
that she
power.
did what they needed. Right. I get it.
No, but they
Right.
knew they weren't going to get blockbuster movies anymore. Like,
I mean,
it for them.
these are moments in life that define a person's life. These are not moments like me and you where we go to work and we're like, oh, I just didn't do that today. Fuck it. That's not the same thing, right? Like you can't just not do it. I can imagine. I'm trying to like put myself into the stress level of that ambiguity, and this is why people are very anti-Hollywood at the moment, because it's like you're putting people into positions where they're making their lives worse. Like the fact that she even if she didn't even feel like let's just be the naysayer and say that she didn't even feel that, she's making it up in hindsight. No, nobody makes that up in hindsight. You don't fucking make up stress. You either have it or you don't, right? Like if someone's reporting that stress, that's how they felt. That is the whole
Well, and
thing.
it was pretty I mean, again, she is pretty
You
young
shouldn't
at the time. It was a pretty
Yeah.
stressful experience for her. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Someone's telling you to
even
fucking
just
watch your
even just
weight.
like standing
what?
up in front of people and acting was tough on her. Like there's stories about the Empire scene where she has to like give that briefing to all the rebel pilots, and it stressed her out to no end that she had to get up there and talk to
But
all of them.
That's healthy stress. That's your
yeah,
job. That's your.
Oh, I know, but it
Yeah.
still was
When you're having
that
someone
alone.
talk to you about your gender being like you need to
Right.
be this, I understand that that's something you can't even fucking. None of us will ever understand, right? So I understand that like those commentary tracks are annoying because she's all passive aggressive, but now I'm starting to think, oh shit, there's a different perspective. There's a reason why
Yeah.
she's stressed.
No,
That
she's,
also takes into account.
she's very well loved. I mean, people. I mean, it's not like she's seen as this awful person necessarily either.
No,
and so
no,
I know that.
no, that's not what I took away from it. at
No,
all.
no,
It's
that's
just-
what I know. But Denny is like,
These
said
are
some
really good.
nasty things
These are
about her.
really good insights
She
as
was-
far as like.
I don't
how
mean to come
stressful
across
this
that
could
way.
be.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
she was the most notably annoyed at this.
Yeah,
movie.
That could be because
from the,
that
she was
she
in all
has-
the
and
commentary
she
tracks.
still
would
hasn't
say
dealt with it.
things. She would say things that were factually untrue too. So
Yeah.
I mean, there is that.
Yeah, but that's just age.
But yeah,
you know,
well, and she
grandmother,
was on
right?
a lot of
Grandmother, she said
drugs.
shit that's
at
untrue all the
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking making shit up as she
So,
goes.
so to move on,
Damn it.
there,
Thanks,
there's like some great parts in the book where they're doing like some like story brainstorming sessions between Lucas and Kasdan. They brought Kasdan back on. He's the guy that did the writing for Empire, kind of as a favor to George, even though he was in the Writers Guild. But they just brought him back on for script writing, and throughout like the Return of the Jedi, it was him and Kasdan that kept like Lucas would write a script, Kasdan would take it, edit it, work on it, give it back to Lucas. Lucas would edit and work on it. But this is like some of the quotes from verbatim quotes from like one of their script writing sessions where they were working together. So you had Kasdan and Marquand and Lucas. And Lucas is saying, okay, so Lucas talks about how one of the things that could possibly happen, again, they were just spitballing all the time here. But he's like, well, okay, what if Luke like takes Vader's mask after Vader's dead and said, all right, now I will go and kill the fleet and I will rule the universe. And Kasdan said, that's what I think should happen. And Lucas says, no, come on. This is for kids. And Kasdan says, I think you should kill Luke and have Leia take over. And Lucas says, you don't want to kill Luke. Kasdan says, okay, then kill Yoda. And Lucas says, I don't want to kill Yoda. You don't have to kill people. You're a product of the 1980s. You don't go around killing people. It's not nice. And Kasdan says, no, I'm not. I'm trying to give the story some kind of an edge to it. And Lucas says, I know you're trying to make it more realistic, which is what I tried to do when I killed Ben, but I managed to take the edge off it. And it's what I tried to do when I froze Han. But this is the end of the trilogy. And we've already established that there are real dangers. I don't think we have to kill anyone to prove it. And Kasdan says, but no one's been hurt. And Lucas says, Ben and Han, they've both, Luke got his hand cut off. And Kasdan said, Ben and Han are fine. Luke got a new hand 2 cuts later. Lucas says, by killing somebody, I think you alienate the audience. And Kasdan says, I am saying the movie has more emotional weight. If someone you love is lost along the way, the journey has more impact. Lucas says, I don't like that, and I don't believe that. Kasdan says, well, that's all right. Lucas says, I've always hated that in movies. When you go along and one of the main characters gets killed, this is a fairy tale. You want everybody to live happily ever after, and nothing bad happens to everybody. It's
not a fairy tale.
How do they have this audio? How do they have this dialogue? Do they record themselves?
So they have transcripts because they want these notes.
Somebody there, it's not a part of the conversation, is writing all this down.
I think so, yeah. It's either transcribed or it's audioed.
They probably recorded it and then transcribed it. They recorded it.
But it's so amazing to hear. I mean, these guys were working hard on this stuff and all the time like debating, well, do you have 1 Death Star, 2 Death Stars? Or do we have this city of Had Abaddon? What do we do? How do we like wrap all this up? Who do we kill? Should we kill anybody? And it's just... It's kind of amazing to watch it all play out.
I mean, this is amazing. I love this story, John. I'm really glad you brought this up because this is collaboration at its finest. This is what collaboration is supposed to be. This is people that are in difference of opinions, but know that difference of opinion is the overall story. So like, that's what you're supposed to do in these moments. Collaborate. I think that's thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm the audience member now. I just love to hear that there's bickering going on in the background.
Right.
Like they're not always perfect, right? Like they have some asshole that's like me that's like, it doesn't make any sense, guy. We should kill somebody. And they're like, no, don't be so negative. He's like, I don't know. Timmy D. Buckle said we should kill him. Larry Arabia, he's on board. All right. I don't know. I mean, that was fucking fantastic. And what's really great is that he actually let them talk.
Oh no, and Lucas does, as much as he is the visionary producer and so on, he really tries to hash it out with these guys.
Right. Like he wants to hear their opinion and wants to take it into account.
Right. And this I think is why he's not hated, even by a lot of the people that disagree with him. It's not like they feel like they're not listened to or that their opinion wasn't like given a chance. Their opinion was voiced. Their opinion was well heard and was well thought about, and then disregarded because it was not the right thing for the business. Yeah, I love it. I fucking love it. This goes on, and this sort of Marquand's just talking about he said, well, they're talking about the scene in Jabba the Hutt's den, and he's like, well, what if the next rival is Chewie in chains with the bounty hunter, which is in fact Leia dressed up. Luke's not there yet, and Lucas says, I can go with that. And Marquand said, I think if you go along with that idea, then she could be discovered, which is why she is then turned into a dancing girl. That would be neat. So I don't know. Again, just maybe a little bit of side evidence there that Marquand's really pushing for Leia as the dancing girl. And
how can we get Leia to take all of her clothes off?
Later, he's like said Marquand later in this conversation said it'd be really nice to have a chain around her ankle, a leash, which Luke can dispose of just like that.
Like I have my fucking person in my basement. I feed fucking tuna fish on Sundays.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, and maybe as you say, Denny, maybe Lucas was all pushing for this too, but I don't know. I just given some of the things he said about Leia as a character,
he was, and the thing is too, like she complained about how unflattering her costumes were the entire time, and then she got this one and she was pissed off about it too. It's like, come on.
I mean, let's also take into the account the fact that the industry was at that place then too.
Yeah,
this was a norm.
Right,
this was a thing that they needed to do to sell.
This is why
I think it works for the story.
No, it does. I'm just saying, like, there's multiple reasons why this conversal even came up.
Right.
Like, it's unfortunate that even had to,
So one other interesting point that's just really trivial in a sense, but it just comes up that Lucas and they're continuing to talk, and eventually they talk about Yoda. And Lucas says a misconception is that Yoda teaches Jedi, but he's like a guru. He doesn't go out and fight anybody.
He's fucking Tony Robbins over here.
Wait, who's talking? This is Lucas talking?
Yes, right. So
what
it's
an
just
asshole!
interesting.
What an
Right,
asshole!
I know,
because
right?
you've seen
Because
the fucking
later,
prequels.
Later,
Yeah.
right. In the prequels, Yoda is a badass fighter, right? So that's
How
why
could he say that? He's man.
he can change his mind. It's his
Because
character.
that's how far into this universe he lives
Dude,
in.
that makes me mad. That makes me so mad.
It makes us mad. It makes
might.
me mad too. I'm gonna admit it makes me mad too. But what I'm trying to fucking hold on to, which is something positive, is that these people are so entrenched in their own world, and they're so, as I always say, and you've heard this on the podcast multiple times, these people are so far up their own fucking ass, they don't have any other fucking way to think
So
about
speaking of actors, then this is this other really great quote from Lucas where they're talking about Billy D. Williams. Lucas says, "We're going to have to cope with Billy," and Marquand says, "Well, seriously, the Falcon is the thing to send him." And Lucas says, "I'm just going to have to break the news that it's not about him." And Kasdan says, "Well, why does he think it's about him?" And Lucas says, "Because he's an actor."
Oh, because he's a man.
He's an actor. He thinks it's all about him.
Dude, literally, that rift still lives. I've met directors, I've met actors, and I will say that I have no idea who's more important.
Oh no! I just thought it was sort of a funny moment that they're going to have to explain.
You guys know
it.
I'm usually serious about everything and very like, oh, I know exactly what's right. I'm a know-it-all. I don't know shit. I've met brilliant people on both sides, and I've seen situations where the director's a piece of shit, the actor's unstoppable, and it's miserable. And I've seen situations where the director's amazing and the actor sucks, and it's shit. Yep. So like, they're fucking both equally important. I just, the situation remains. The director thinks he's more important. Well, he's an actor, right? Like,
I just want to give Ralph McQuarrie his due again. There's more work here about him. I mean, where he's just sort of like he's the subtitle in the book is called the Visionary Departure. When Ralph McQuarrie was absent, I mean, he'd gone on. Part of the things he'd done, he defined the looks of Darth Vader, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, Stormtroopers, the lightsaber. And again, the aesthetic of the film is basically what he provided. And he just was getting burned out, as I said before. And he'd worked tirelessly on Empire. He just said, I quote, "I just wasn't nearly as happy with the paintings I did on Empire. I was full of apprehensions. I looked at my original paintings from Star Wars and I thought I'll just never be able to do as good. I just was not in a good state of mind." And he just sort of felt like he struggled with it. And again, then just to quote again, where the story I told earlier, to quote it more directly from the book, quote, "There was this afternoon," this is Ruddis Jamero, one of the other, I think, illustrators, but he was saying, "There was this afternoon where we all were gathered months after Ralph actually stopped coming, and George made a point of thanking Ralph in front of everybody. And Ralph stood up and said, I was one of the first people that George hired, and because Ralph is an unbelievably humble man." And then George caught up and said, "No, you were the first one." And I don't know. It seems like a very touching moment there. And just, I
find this to be one of the most, calming stories of this whole podcast. I think it's great to know that people at that stature can recognize when someone else is just done.
Right. I mean, this guy,
it not be a detriment.
Right.
It be like, we love you and do your thing.
Right. He wasn't the only one who did it, but if anybody defined the look of Star Wars, it was McQuarrie. And
the fucking guy needs to take a break. Let him fucking take a break. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for this trivia. That was great.
Yeah. Let's see. So,
how much more you got, John?
Not too much more. I'm getting to the end of my list here. So, let's take a break. Do we need a break? Is it break time?
No. Yeah, John, you're going to talk. He's going to go.
Wait. We do need a break. This is going to be a 3-part episode, John. This was a good part for a break. What do you say?
Yeah, I need to go check and make sure my wife is still surviving.
Make sure the
still alive.
Yeah. Poor girl.
Hey, John, I really appreciate all your hard work on this.
Thank you, man. But this is
really
fun.
Yeah.
I think, and again, it's why I'm like wanting to see, reading about these films and appreciating them. I don't know if we're going to find material like this on the other films.
I don't think we will.
But yeah. So
this is a unique experience here for sure.
I think you both have done a great job on all this research. I wish I had it in me to do it, but I appreciate that you guys.
Hey,
you watched it, man. That's a big fucking
I've been listening to some of our podcasts during work and just being like, fucking ignore me. But like, the fucking stuff that you guys bring to the table is fantastic. It really is. It's something that like we're going to look back on when we're like 60, 70. We can't fucking walk down the stairs anymore. And we're going to be like, that was fucking cool. Really appreciate it, man.
That was cool.
Oh, thanks. All right.
Go take a break.
All right. So we're
take a pause.
So we're doing a 3-parter, I guess. I'm going to put this audio in here because I don't like recording it later.
Yeah.
3-parter, more trivia. After these messages
What
from
we're
our
doing right now
sponsors.
is we're spackling the desert of Star Wars. Larry was hired on. Timmy's there. We're going to spackle the desert of Star Wars. There's no desert. It's just space. But hey, you know, it's okay. We'll do it anyway. So we're going to take a break.
No, what you do with the Death Star is you
just
spackle by going to a sand planet and you use the little ray and it really makes it all glass. Spackles
Well,
it
you know,
real
I
nice.
found it. If you add in a little cement into the sand, it turns out a little bit stronger. You know, that's not true, Timmy. I don't know. I think it is. All right, bud.
All right. Let's take a break. Let's see if my wife will let
More
me
trivia
return.
to come.